Greetings and welcome to tip bundle number 4. I'm product manager Martin Brennan, and we're going to go through 3 of the next set of mocha tips that we post online and convert them into tiny little tutorials for your digestion. So now that we've explained that, let's get on with the tips. When doing roto, it's sometimes best to avoid using the same shape that you track with. First, you can easily avoid problems. So here we want to roto this eye, but you can see as we scrub the shot, the eye's sort of moving around, he's blinking, and if we try to do a roto shape around his eye to track, we're probably going to lose some data. So what we want to do instead is just draw a simple shape around his head. So I'm going to draw a nice little bit of rough shape around here, and we can start tracking that forwards. So as we track forwards, we can see it's going to hit that coral, so I'm just going to press stop. And I'm just going to move that up, and this is a great way to help avoid problems while you're working. So I'm going to just move this around, and we'll just keep on tracking. And you can see it's digging in a little bit there, but we're locking on quite nicely. So once we've got that data, we can then link a refined roto shape to this track. So I'm going to call this one track. And then I'm just going to hide the track, and we're going to draw our refined roto around the eye. So we'll draw a new X-spline, and we'll get it tight in around that eye, like so, and then we can just smooth that out, adjust it a little bit, and then link it to the track, and we're going to call this layer eye. So now when we scrub through the shot, we've got our nice refined roto, but it's linked to a different track that's not getting thrown out by the changing data in our eye. Secondly, you can choose better data without having to adjust or add points later. For example, this foreground coral is sort of in the way of our head here, so instead what I can do is draw a nice big chunky shape around our coral, and I'm not going to track all of it. And then we can just set this to shear and start tracking that forwards. And what this is doing is it's looking at the background edges around our coral and just working out how that foreground area is working with the background. And it's a very subtle motion, but it's capturing all that subtle detail with a larger shape. Now I could go ahead and start adding points to this spline, refining it like this, but it will take a while for me to go ahead and pull all these points back in and then work out where my curves are, and it just gets a bit messy. So what I can do again is I'm just going to select coral track like this. Let's put a space between those so we know what we're dealing with. And then I can hide that one as well and start doing my refined roto around the coral. So we only really care about covering his head here, so I'm just going to roto out that top part like so. And we'll get all those subtle curves. Once again, we'll smooth that out. And then we can just link our coral roto to our coral track. And then once again we've got a refined roto that's listing with our track in that subtle motion rather than having to refine the existing track. Thirdly, we can actually use one track to do multiple shapes. So if we turn back on our track shape here for the head, we can see that this is tracking the head nice and solidly, and we've got a whole bunch of other areas that we could roto on this face. So if I turn my track off again, we've already done our eye, but now I can go in and start rotoing out the patches on his face in a much tighter roto cycle, smooth those out again, and then once again link it to the existing track, and then we've got another piece of roto that doesn't need additional keyframing. When working in roto, it's often useful to be able to pan and zoom the shot when you're in close. You can do this by using the pan and zoom tools while you're drawing. So if I start to draw a shape along this turtle shell here, and I start to get to an edge, I can hold down the X key to pan my shot over and continue drawing. And as we get down here and we're getting this subtle curve down here, I want to get in closer and look at that, so I can hold down the Z key and zoom in and then keep on drawing. So the pan tool is very, very useful because it means that we can move around the shot while we're zooming in close, and if we need to get out and see the whole picture, we can keep on panning and zooming around just using those two toggle keys. A common question we see with first-time users of mocha data is that they don't quite understand why when you export out transform data to After Effects that it doesn't start to move as soon as you paste it and match the motion. The reason for this is that we export 4 types of keyframes into the transform data option. We have anchor point data, positional data, scale data, and rotational data. And it's the anchor point and positional data that we're going to talk about today. So I'm just going to copy that to the clipboard and bring it over to After Effects. Okay, so here we are over in After Effects, and I've set up some text here that I want to move to the motion of our turtle's head. Now, I want to do this by linking it to a null, so I can easily move around the text later. So I'm going to create a new null object, and I'm just going to stick that somewhere in the center here, and then I'm going to paste my mocha data. And we can do this either by using Command or Control V, or we come up to Paste, and just select that. So when we bring that in, we can see our null's moved up to the top corner, and we've got this motion data here coming from where we tracked on his head in mocha. Now, if I go ahead and parent the Mr. Turtle text to our null object, you're going to see something weird happen. Our text really isn't going where we expect it to. It's sort of rotating around and moving in a weird way, but it's sort of sitting in the same spot. And the reason for this is that our null data contains extra information that we don't want to use. So I'm just going to unparent that null, and we're going to come up to the null data and press U to bring up all of our keys. So you can see here we've got rotation and scale, and then we've got positional data and anchor point data. Now, anchor point data is the optional extra when you bring it in from mocha. Positional data will actually lock down and match move the motion of where you've tracked, and the anchor point data will do the reverse. It will stabilize your shot around the point that you've tracked. Now, the problem with this is that the position and anchor point data kind of counteract each other, so it ends up staying in the same spot. So if you want to match move where you've tracked, you just need to get rid of your anchor point data. Inversely, if you want to stabilize, you would get rid of the positional data and keep your anchor point data. But here, now that I've gotten rid of my anchor point data, I can come down here, choose my null to parent the text, and now you'll see it move along with the head correctly. So if we just come down here and press play, we can see now that the Mr. Turtle text is moving properly with the head rather than sort of staying in the same spot and just rotating and scaling. So next time you bring in your transform data, remember to go to your keys and choose whether you want to keep your anchor point data or keep your position data. So that was Mocha Tip Bundle number 4. If you go to our Twitter page at Imagineer System, you can get some more Mocha tips, or you can go to our Facebook page at facebook.com/Imagineer Systems. I've been Martin Brennan, Product Manager of Imagineer Systems, and we'll see you next time for Tip Bundle number 5.